Today I'm going to show you how to use the SQ3R critical reading method. Now, you should have a template available to you that I have created in Google Docs that you can use to fill in your notes as you read using SQ3R. It may be located on the agenda or in a project briefcase. Once you locate the template, click on the link and you'll see this page pop up. You'll need to make a copy of the document. And immediately, before you do anything else, you want to eliminate the copy of and replace it with your username. And then you want to eliminate this information at the end because you want to put in today's reading title so that as we do multiple SQ3R notes, you can delineate between which one is which. So when you copy a document, as we have just done, it puts it in your Google Drive, and you'll need to move it so that I have access. If you click the little folder at the top of your document and then click the blue button, Move This Item, you'll have to navigate to your drive, your classes, trimester 1, and then you'll have to pick the class where it belongs. Now, I'm going to put mine in a little bit different place because I want to have it for future classes, not just my classes for this year. So once you've placed it in your folder, it'll tell you at the top it has been moved, and then which folder it moved to, make sure that's correct. Now, we're ready to start filling in our notes. Again, the first thing you want to do is fill in your title for today's reading. Okay, and then we'll move down here to our table. You can see the SQ and 3 R's. It is an acronym, and I'm going to explain what it stands for. I'm going to pull my reading up here on the left. Now, I know on the Chromebooks you have a very small screen. So if you don't want to do side by side with your reading and your graphic organizer, you could always print out the graphic organizer and then read your reading on your screen. I would prefer you do that rather than printing the reading, as that takes up way more paper. So our first letter, S, is survey. And what that means is I'm just going to give the text a once-over. I'm going to scroll through and write down anything that I see that I think might be important later. So I'll go ahead and go through and do my survey and talk you through what I'm thinking. So the first thing I'm going to do is write down the author's names. I can always go back and look at the text, but the goal is by the end of this to have a set of notes that are a quick reference. So if I want to go back and research the authors or maybe even tweet one of them and look up their Twitter account, I have their names in my notes. I also see some key terms at the beginning of chapter number 1. Now you'll see I'm writing in shorthand. I'm shortening words and using abbreviations. These are your notes, so feel free to do that as long as they make sense to you. So I may come back and review those key terms after I've done the reading. I'll also notice that I am reading chapter 1 of what appears to be a larger textbook. And I can see here on page 2 that the reading has multiple sections. That's fantastic. That's what makes this reading great for SQ3R. I need to break up my reading into sections so that I don't get distracted or lost. So I think I'll try to read 3 sections at a time and then stop and go back and make sure that I understand what I read. So I like that there are sections available here to do that. I can see here that it looks like the author is giving lots of examples. These pieces that seem to be indented a little bit and in their own paragraphs, just glancing, I think those are some examples that might be important later. I can also see at the beginning of my paragraphs, I have some italicized words. I'm guessing that those italics mean that they are key terms and I might want to pay attention to them. Okay, so this is the end. The reading continues, but this is my stopping point for the reading. So that is the end of my survey. It's pretty simple. If you're using this graphic organizer and SQ3R with a textbook, you would want to pay attention to any images, graphs, or charts that might seem important and note those and note those in your survey so that you know to come back to them later. The next step is Q, question. And this step is fairly easy, but it's one of the most important. What you're going to do is you're going to turn each subheading from the text into a question. So chapter, the domain of argumentation. This is the chapter title, so I'm not going to start with that one. I'm going to scroll down to page 2, and I'm going to start with elements of argumentation. That's my first section. So if I turn that into question, I might say, what are the elements of argumentation? My next section is adherence. I might ask, what is adherence? I know the word means that if you have adherence, you have people who are adhering to your idea, they're agreeing with you. So I might ask, if I know my goal is going to be to form an argument, I might ask, how do I achieve adherence from my audience? Now, maybe you didn't know what that word meant and you stopped at what is adherence. That's perfectly fine. I'll do one more. What are appropriate decision makers? Now, I kind of wonder if that might be a person. So I think I'm also going to ask, who are appropriate decision makers? And as I start reading, I might find that one question is better than the other. So you would continue for every one of your bolded subheadings. These turn to bold and italics. You would continue writing your questions for the entire chapter. Once you're done with your questions, you'll go back to the beginning. And our first R is to read. Now, again, I don't recommend that you read straight through the entire reading. I would make some stopping points and break it up into sections. You already have your questions, so it would make sense to read one section and then go back and answer your question. Read the next section and answer the question. This will break it up and make sure that you don't fall asleep or get distracted while you're reading. After you read, or as you read different sections, your second R is to recite. This is, I think, the second most important column on the graphic organizer. What you're going to do in this section is you're going to answer your questions. So my first question is, what are the elements of argumentation? And if I go back and take a look at my reading, I should be able to summarize what I read. Now, what I would recommend is read the section and then put your reading away. Don't look at it and try to put it into your own words. Try to summarize it. And then go back and check your reading and see if you were correct. And see if there is anything that you are missing. So that's what you'll do as you fill in this graphic organizer. The final R is to review. That's really helpful if you've got a test coming up. Now you have a single page of notes over the reading that you can look through and review and reread rather than reading the entire text again.